The last goodbye. She never imagined that saying "I'll be right back" would be the last lie she would tell herself. Claire always believed her life was like a book already written. Married for 15 years to William with 2 children, and a house in Albany that she lovingly decorated herself. Each room had its own mark. The blue curtains in the living room, which she chose one Saturday afternoon. The family photo frame on the staircase wall. The yellow kitchen, which she painted herself, while William said it was a waste of time. Everything seemed to fit together. Everything seemed right. At least, that's what she told herself every morning when she woke up. But that November morning, as she made coffee as she always did, 2 spoons of sugar in his cup, none in hers, her hands were shaking. Not from the cold, from fear. A fear she'd been swallowing for years, pretending it didn't exist. A fear that grew silently, like a shadow that lengthens when the sun sets. Claire looked at her hand holding the cup. When had she aged so much? When had those fine lines around her fingers appeared? She was only 38, but she felt as if she had lived for 80. William entered the kitchen. The sound of his footsteps no longer made her heart beat differently. Before, when they were newlyweds, she would run to the door when she heard him arrive. Now she barely looked up. He straightened his tie without looking at her. He picked up his coffee cup, took a quick sip and checked his phone. Not a good morning. Not a touch. Not that look he once had, which made her feel like the most special woman in the world. Only silence. That heavy silence that screamed louder than any argument. Claire wanted to say something. She wanted to ask, "William, when did we stop looking at each other?" But the words stuck. She was so afraid of the answer. Or worse, afraid that he wouldn't care enough to even respond. He left. The door closed, and Claire was left standing there in the middle of the kitchen, holding an empty cup. She looked out the window. The leaves falling from the trees, large, red, golden. Before she'd thought autumn was romantic. Now she only saw death. Things dying, beautiful colors hiding the end. And for the first time in a long time, she asked herself, when did I start falling too? It wasn't sudden. It wasn't one specific day. It was gradual, like the leaves falling one by one, until suddenly you look and the tree is bare. Claire had been a girl full of dreams. She wanted to be a writer. She had notebooks full of stories. She wanted to travel the world, see places she'd only seen in movies. But then she met William. He was charming, confident, successful, and she fell in love, or at least she thought she had. Maybe she fell in love with the idea of him, with the security he offered, with the future he promised. They married quickly. Emma came soon after, then Josh. And somewhere in the midst of the diapers, the sleepless nights, the bills to pay, Claire stopped being Claire. She became William's wife, Emma and Josh's mother. But who was she, alone without those labels? She didn't know anymore. That morning, as she washed his cup, Claire felt a strange sensation in her chest. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't anger, it was emptiness. A huge void she could no longer fill with fake smiles and grocery lists. That day would change everything, but she didn't know it yet. She still thought she was too weak to change anything. She still thought this was her life, that she had to accept it, that women like her had no choice. But sometimes, life has a way of pushing us when we don't have the courage to take the first step alone. And for Claire, that push was just around the corner. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. The life she built. Claire woke up every day at 6 in the morning. It had always been that way. The alarm clock didn't even need to go off anymore. Her body already knew. It was already programmed to wake up, get up and function. She walked down the stairs in the dark, treading lightly so as not to wake anyone. The house was still asleep. This was her only moment. 5-10 minutes of silence before the chaos of the day began. She made coffee, packed her children's lunchboxes, checked their backpacks were packed, checked their homework. It was a dance she knew by heart. Every step, every movement, everything was on autopilot. But lately this routine felt like a burden. Every gesture was automatic, every smile rehearsed. She felt like an actress playing the role of Claire, the perfect wife, only the audience had long since stopped applauding. William would come down at 7, always at 7. He'd get his coffee, check the newspaper on his phone, eat some toast. Sometimes he'd mutter a good morning, sometimes not even that, then he'd leave. Law firm, important meetings, important clients. Everything was important, except her. Claire knew he worked hard. She knew he paid the bills, that he provided a comfortable life for his family. And she was grateful, of course she was, but gratitude didn't warm the bed at night. Gratitude didn't fill the void. Their conversations revolved around logistics. Emma has a dentist appointment on Thursday. Josh needs new sneakers. His mom called. The electric bill arrived. No, how are you? No, I missed you. No, I still love you. Did he still love her? Did she still love her? Or were they both just stuck in a rut, afraid to admit that love had become a habit? After William left and the children went to school, the house was incredibly quiet, a silence that weighed heavily. Claire cleaned the kitchen, folded the clothes, vacuumed, did everything a housewife should. But inside her something screamed, something begged, "Is this all? Is this all?" She looked at her friends on social media. Rebecca in Paris, Linda at her son's graduation, celebrating with a fancy dinner, Susan running a marathon. They all seemed so alive, so happy, so whole. And Claire was there, in the same house, in the same life, 15 years ago. She found herself thinking, when did I stop laughing like that? Not the polite laugh she gave when someone told a bad joke, but the real laugh, the laugh that makes your stomach hurt, the laugh that makes you feel alive. She didn't remember. Claire had always been the woman who made everything work. The perfect mother who never forgot a birthday, a school presentation, a vaccination. The devoted wife who had dinner ready, the house clean, and a smile on her face. The one who never complained, the one who always understood, the one who put everyone else first, everyone but herself. But inside, something was cracking, like a thin vase that holds too much water for too long. Eventually, it breaks. And Claire felt like she was close to breaking. Her children were her joy. 12-year-old Emma was going through that difficult phase. Adolescence was knocking at the door. She no longer wanted hugs in public. She was already rolling her eyes when Claire gave her advice. But she still went up to her room every now and then, threw herself on the bed, and told her about school, about her friends, about the boy she thought was cute. Josh, at 8, was still her baby. He still ran to her when he fell. He still asked to be held. He still believed his mother could fix anything. And Claire made sure they never felt the weight of the silence that existed between her and William. She was good at this, at hiding it, at smiling when it hurt, at saying, "It's okay," when nothing was, at building walls around the pain so no one would see. But sometimes, at night, lying next to William, who slept with his back to her as always, Claire would let a tear fall, just one, silently. And she'd wipe it away quickly before it turned into 2. On empty afternoons, after the children left for school and before they returned, Claire would find herself staring out the window, watching life go by outside. Cars coming and going, people walking, dogs running, the world moving on. And there she was, stuck, trapped inside the very house she once thought would be her paradise. One day, rummaging through her desk drawer for a receipt, she found an old notebook, faded blue cover, yellowed pages. It was hers, from when I was young, before I got married. She opened it carefully and saw poems, stories started but never finished. Bad drawings of places I wanted to see, dreams written in the crooked handwriting of a girl who believed the world was hers. Claire sat on the floor and cried. She cried for that girl. She cried for the dream she had forgotten. She cried for the woman she had become. And then, her hand trembling, she picked up a pen and wrote, "Would anyone miss me if I disappeared?" He read what he'd written. He felt ashamed, a tightness in his chest. What kind of mother would think that? What kind of person would write something like that? He crossed out the sentence hard. He crossed it out until it pierced the paper. He closed the notebook. He put it back in the drawer. He tried to forget, but the question remained, echoing, hammering in her head like a clock that never stops. And without knowing it, that notebook, that question would be the beginning of everything. The silent crack. The weeks passed, and Claire continued her routine. But something had changed. Something small, almost imperceptible, like a thin crack in a wall that you only notice when the light hits it differently. She started paying more attention. To things, to people, to herself. She noticed William barely touched her. When they passed each other in the kitchen, he would step aside, as if she were a piece of furniture, something that's there, part of the house, but you don't notice anymore. She noticed that her friends were calling less and less, not because they didn't like her, but because Claire always said no. "I can't. I have to pick up the kids. I can't. William's going to be late and I need to make dinner. I can't. I'm tired." She realized she'd stopped looking in the mirror. Really. I'd glance at him, checking if his hair was tied up, if there was anything in his teeth, but he couldn't see it. He wouldn't look into his own eyes and ask, "Are you okay?" Because if you asked, you'd have to hear the answer, and the answer was scary. One afternoon, Claire was at the supermarket, pushing her cart through the aisles, picking up the same things she always had. Milk, eggs, bread, Josh's favorite cereal, Emma's favorite yogurt for breakfast. And then he saw it. A woman. She must have been around 50. She stood alone, staring at the wine rack with a lost expression, grey hair a bit messy, simple clothes, tired eyes. Claire looked at her and thought, "In 10 years, I'll be her." The thought came so strong, so clear, that she had to hold on to the stroller. Her legs felt weak, her heart raced. It wasn't fear, it was terror. Terror of seeing himself in that reflection of the future. He left the supermarket almost running. He left the cart half empty. He got in the car and stood there, hands on the steering wheel, breathing deeply. "I don't want this," she whispered to herself. "I don't want to become this." But what did she want? That was the question that hurt, because Claire had spent so much time being what others needed that she'd forgotten what it felt like to want something for herself. At home, she tried to talk to William. She waited for him to have dinner. She waited for the children to come upstairs. She waited for the right moment. "William," she began, her voice hesitant, "we need to talk." He looked up from his phone, impatient. "About what?" "About us," he sighed. That sigh that said, "Here she comes again." "Claire, I'm tired. It's been a long day. Can we leave it for another day?" "It's always another day," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "We never really talk." "We're talking right now." "No, you're on your phone. I'm trying to reach you and you can't even see me." William slammed his phone down on the table. "What do you want, Claire? I work all day to support this house, so you and the kids can have everything. Isn't that enough?" "It's not about money. It's about us. About you and me. When was the last time we talked, for real? When was the last time you asked me how I am? You always seem fine." And there it was, the naked truth. She'd pretended so well for so long that he actually believed her. Or worse, he'd stopped caring. "I'm not okay, William." Silence. He looked at her, really looked. And for a second, Claire thought she saw something, concern, love, anything. But what she saw was irritation, exhaustion. "What do you want me to do, Claire?" "I don't know what you want. I want you to see me. I see you every day. No, you see the mother of your children, the woman who makes your coffee. But you don't see me. You don't see the Claire that exists beneath all of this. William rubbed his face with his hands. Look, I don't know what phase you're going through, but I'm tired. Let's go to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. Claire went upstairs. She lay down on her bed. She cried into her pillow so no one could hear. She had tried. She had reached out. And he had dropped her. In the days that followed, something changed in Claire. She stopped waiting. She stopped believing William would wake up one day and be the man she knew again. She stopped deluding herself. Emma noticed. Children always do. "Mom, are you okay?" she asked one night, walking into Claire's room. Claire forced a smile. "Yes, I am, my love. Why?" "I don't know. You're different. Quieter." Claire pulled her daughter close and hugged her. "Sometimes we just need some time to think, you know, but it's okay. I promise." Emma stayed there, in the embrace, for a while. Then she said softly, "You don't have to pretend with me, Mom. I already know you and Dad aren't on the best of terms." Claire's heart sank. She had failed. She had failed to protect her children from that pain. "I'm sorry, Emma. No need to apologize. Just don't give up on yourself, okay?" And in that moment, in that simple sentence from a 12-year-old girl, Claire understood something. She had to make a choice. Keep sinking, pretending, slowly fading away, or fight for herself, even if it was scary, even if she didn't know how. That night, Claire returned to the drawer. She took out the blue notebook and wrote, "I don't know who I am, but I want to find out." It was a beginning, small, fragile, but it was a beginning. And sometimes all we need is to take the first step, even without knowing where it will lead. The awakening of courage. Claire woke up one December morning and realized she'd made a decision without even knowing when. It wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic. It was just a quiet certainty. She wasn't going to disappear anymore. It started small, because big changes are scary, and Claire was still scared, very scared. He decided to do something just for her again. Something that had nothing to do with William, the children, or the house. Something that was just hers. He searched online. He found a creative writing course at the city library, Tuesdays and Thursdays from 10 to noon. Perfect. The kids would be at school, William at work. She could go. No one would even need to know. But when it came time to click subscribe, her hand stopped. What if it was ridiculous? What if she wasn't good enough? What if people laughed at her writing? What if you spend the rest of your life not trying? A voice whispered inside her. It clicked. In her first class, Claire almost gave up before entering. She stood in front of the library for 5 minutes, staring at the door. She could go back. No one would know. No one would miss her, but she would feel it. She took a deep breath. She walked in. The room was small. 8 people sat in a circle. The teacher, a woman in her 60s, with short white hair and tinted glasses, smiled at her. "You must be Claire. Welcome. Sit wherever you like." Claire sat. Sweaty palms, heart racing. The class began. The teacher spoke about the importance of writing the truth. Not the facts, but the emotional truth. "Writing is bleeding on paper," she said. "It's having the courage to show who you really are," Claire wrote. At first, the words were hesitant. Then something began to flow, like a dammed river that finally found a way out. She wrote about a woman who had lost her way, who had forgotten her own name, who woke up every day not knowing who she was. When class ended, the teacher approached. "You write with so much soul, Claire. Don't give up." Claire left feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Maybe there was still a Claire underneath it all. Maybe she could still be found. At home, she kept it a secret. She didn't tell William. She knew he would belittle her. He would say it was a waste of time, that she had more important things to do, but twice a week Claire went to that room and wrote and breathed and felt alive. The weeks passed. Christmas came and went. Claire decorated the house, cooked dinner, smiled in the photos, but inside something was changing. She was changing. He began to notice things he'd previously ignored. He began to be bothered by things he'd previously accepted. William talking to her without looking up from his phone. William joking about her weight in front of his friends. William making decisions without asking her opinion. Claire, I made a dinner date for Saturday with the Petersons. No, do you want to go? No, are you free? I'm the only one who made the date. Actually, I have other plans for Saturday, she said. William stopped. He looked at her as if she'd spoken in another language. What plans? My plans. What kind of plans? Does it matter? He narrowed his eyes. You've been acting strange lately. I don't know what's going on with you. I don't know either, but I'm finding out. William shook his head irritably. I'll go alone then. Fine. And it was. Fine. Claire realized it was okay. The world didn't fall apart because she said no. William didn't die because she had a will of her own. She was beginning to understand something. For 15 years she had thought love was sacrifice. It was giving everything. It was selflessness. But that wasn't love. That was fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of being alone. But now, for the first time, Claire was beginning to be more afraid of continuing to disappear than of being alone. In writing class, she met Margaret, a 52-year-old woman, divorced for 3 years, with 2 grown children. Margaret was everything Claire wasn't: confident, decisive, free. They started having coffee after class. Margaret told stories about her divorce, not romanticizing it, being honest. It was hell, she said, but it was hell that saved me. What do you mean? Claire asked. I had lost myself so much in the marriage that I didn't even remember who I was. When he left, I had to find myself. And it was hard, painful, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because today, I know myself. I respect myself. I love myself. Claire listened, fascinated and frightened at the same time. You're unhappy, aren't you? Margaret asked one day, straight to the point. Claire hesitated, then nodded. And what are you going to do about it? I don't know. That's a lie. You know, you're just scared. What if I get it wrong? What if you get it right? That question kept echoing. What if she gets it right? Claire began to think of the future differently, not as a sentence, but as a possibility. She started saving money. A little. Very little. But it was hers. She kept it in an envelope hidden deep in her underwear drawer. I didn't know why. She just knew she needed something that was just hers. She started getting ready again, not for William, for herself. She put on lipstick. She wore that dress she'd kept in her closet for years. She got a haircut. When she came home with her new hair, William didn't even notice, but Emma did. Mom, you look beautiful. And Claire smiled, a genuine smile. Josh, always observant in his way, said, Mom, you look happier. And she was. Not quite yet. Not quite yet. But she was starting. She was learning that happiness isn't a destination. It's a daily choice, a daily struggle. One night, lying in bed next to William, who was snoring, Claire picked up her phone. She searched. How to know when a marriage is over. Signs of a toxic relationship. How to start over after 40. She wasn't 40 yet, but she was close, and the thought of turning 40 like that, empty, drained, desperate, was unbearable. She read testimonials, stories of women who had left, stories of women who had stayed, stories of pain, stories of new beginnings, and she realized something. There was no right answer, there was no manual. Every woman had to find her own path. But one thing was clear. Claire could no longer pretend. She could no longer live on autopilot. She could no longer be invisible in her own life. She needed something, a sign, a clue, something to show the way. And since the universe has a strange way of responding when we finally ask, that something was about to appear. In a way Claire never could have imagined. The yellow envelope. It was a Thursday. Claire remembers because Thursday was writing class day. She was tidying up the kitchen after breakfast when she heard the mailbox ring. Usually it was just bills, advertisements, nothing special. But that day, among the letters, there was a yellow envelope, large, no return address. Just her handwritten name, Claire Mitchell. She looked around as if someone could explain. She carefully opened the envelope. Inside, a letter. Old paper. Shaky handwriting. Dear Claire, you don't know me, but I knew your mother. My name is Dorothy Hanson. I was your mother's neighbor in Boston before you were born. I'm 83 now, and time is running out. There's something you need to know, something your mother made me promise to keep until the time was right. I think that moment has arrived. If you can, come visit me. My address is on the back of this letter. I don't have a phone, but I'm always home. There are truths about your mother that can change the way you see your own life. Love, Dorothy. Claire sat in the kitchen chair, hands shaking. Her mother had died 12 years ago. Cancer, quick and brutal. They were close, or at least Claire always thought they were. But secrets, hidden truths, that didn't make sense. She turned the paper over. An address in Boston, 3 hours from Albany. Claire spent the whole day thinking about that letter. Who was Dorothy? What did she know? Why now? That night he tried to talk to William. I received a strange letter today. He was on his laptop, working. From a woman who knew my mother. She wants to see me. William, are you listening to me? He looked up, irritated. Yes, you got a letter and I'm thinking about going to Boston to see this woman. Why? Because she says she has something important to tell me about my mother. William sighed. Claire, it's probably some scammer. Old ladies who make up stories to make money. Throw it away. It doesn't feel like a scam. Everything seems legitimate until you fall. Claire looked at him, at the man who once promised to be by her side through everything, at the man who now treated her like a child, incapable of making decisions. I'll go, she said, as you wish. But don't ask me for money when you find out it was a setup. Claire went upstairs. She took the envelope hidden in the drawer. She counted it. $400. Enough for gas, and maybe a hotel if she needed it. On Saturday morning, Claire woke up early. She left William a note. I'm off to Boston. I'll be back Sunday night. Food in the freezer, kisses to the kids. She got in the car, turned on the GPS. A 3-hour and 15-minute drive, and off we went. The road was long, but Claire didn't care. She put on music. Music she liked, not the radio stations William insisted on listening to. She sang loudly. She rolled down the window. She felt the wind on her face. She felt free. Boston appeared on the horizon. Big city, traffic, noise, but also life, movement. Dorothy's address was in an old neighborhood. Brick houses, trees lining the sidewalks. The charm of a small town within a big city. Claire parked in front. Number 247. A simple but well-kept house, a garden with flowers, a rocking chair on the porch. She took a deep breath, got out of the car, walked up the steps, ringed the doorbell. A lady opened the door. Short, white hair tied in a bun, bright blue eyes, a kind smile. You must be Claire. Yes. Are you Dorothy? It's me. Come in, dear. I've been waiting for you. The house smelled of cookies and lavender. There were photos everywhere, a lifetime in frames. Dorothy offered tea. They sat in the living room. You're just like her, Dorothy said, looking at Claire with teary eyes. Same eyes, same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. Did you know my mother well? Yes, I did. She lived next door for 5 years, before she married your father, before you were born. We were friends. very close. Dorothy picked up an old shoebox. She opened it. Your mother left me this. She made me promise not to give it to you until you were ready. Ready for what? The truth. Claire felt a tightness in her chest. What truth? Dorothy handed over the box. Inside, letters, dozens of letters, all addressed to Claire's mother, and photos. Photos of a young, beautiful, happy woman, her mother. But a version of her Claire didn't know. There was also a diary. Your mother was very unhappy in her marriage, Claire, Dorothy said, her voice soft but firm. Your father was a difficult man, controlling, cold. He made her give up everything she loved, her career, her friends, her dreams. Claire felt tears burning. Why didn't she ever tell me? Because she was ashamed. Because she didn't want you to know she'd given up on herself. But before she died, she told me something. She said, if Claire is ever lost, like I was, give this to her. Let her know I understand, that I was there too, and that I wish I'd been stronger. Claire opened the diary with trembling hands. Her mother's handwriting, words written decades ago. Today, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself. Who is this woman? Where did Julia go, the one who laughed, who dreamed, who wanted to change the world? He said my work wasn't important, that I should stay home, and I believed him. Why? Why did I let him? Sometimes I look ahead and see only years and years of the same thing, and I wonder, is this all there is? Claire cried. She cried for her mother. She cried for herself. She cried for all the women who lose their way. She wanted you to know, Dorothy said, holding Claire's hand, that you don't have to repeat her mistakes. That you can choose differently, that you can be strong even when it seems impossible. Claire sat there for hours, reading the letters, looking at the photos, getting to know a version of her mother she never knew existed. There were photos of her as a young woman at a graduation. Julia Thompson, Bachelor of Journalism. Claire didn't know her mother had graduated. She thought she'd always been a housewife. There were letters from friends, from former co-workers, from people who admired her mother, who missed her, and there was one last letter, written shortly before she died, addressed to Claire. My dear daughter, if you're reading this, it's because you're lost. It's because you feel invisible. It's because you're wondering if there's something more. There is. I've made mistakes, Claire. I've let fear decide for me. I've let a man define my worth. I've forgotten who I am. But you don't have to do the same. You are strong, stronger than you imagine, stronger than I was. Don't be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to choose yourself. Life is too short to live in hiding. Be the woman I didn't have the courage to be. I love you. Always. Mother Claire folded the letter. She held it close to her heart. Thank you, she whispered to Dorothy. Thank you for keeping this, for waiting. She knew you would come when you were ready. And Claire was ready, ready for the truth, ready for change, ready to fight. She left Dorothy's house with the shoebox under her arm and a certainty in her heart. She wasn't going to repeat her mother's story. She was going to write her own. The conversation that changes everything. Claire returned to Albany on Sunday night. The house was a mess, dishes in the sink, clothes strewn about. William was on the couch watching TV. Hi, she said. Hi, he replied without taking his eyes off the screen. Where are the kids? In the bedroom. Claire went upstairs. She hugged Emma and Josh. She smelled them, their warmth. Her heart sank. Everything she was going to do was for them too, to show that mothers can be strong too, that women don't have to disappear. She got off. She sat next to William. We need to talk. He sighed. That sigh she knew so well. Again? Yes, again. And this time you'll listen to me. Something in her tone made William turn off the TV, turn to her. I don't want this anymore, Claire said, her voice firm. I don't want this marriage anymore where I'm invisible, where you barely look at me, where we share a bed but share nothing else. Claire, every marriage goes through phases. Don't interrupt me. I've spent 15 years listening to you. Now you listen to me. William closed his mouth. I lost myself, William. I lost myself so much that I don't know who I am anymore. I became your wife, the children's mother. But Claire, she disappeared, and I let her. I left because I thought it was what I had to do. I left because I was afraid of losing you. Claire, I didn't ask you to. I know you didn't ask, but you didn't stop me either. You let me disappear. You got used to the woman who cooks, cleans, takes care of things, and never complains. And you stopped seeing that there was a person there, a person who is drowning. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice didn't tremble. I went to Boston. I met a friend of my mother's. She showed me letters, a diary. I discovered that my mother had been unhappy in her marriage her entire life. That she lost herself, just as I am losing myself, and that she died without ever finding herself again. William was quiet, finally listening. I'm not going to do this, William. I'm not going to reach 80 and look back on a lifetime of silence, of erasure, of fear. What do you want, Claire? He asked, and for the first time in a long time, he sounded genuine. I want you to see me. I want you to care. I want real conversations. I want us to be a couple, not two strangers sharing an address. I work a lot, Claire. I'm tired. I'm tired too. Do you think taking care of this house, these children, isn't tiring? Do you think I don't work just because I don't get paid? Heavy silence. The difference, Claire continued, is that you can leave the office. I never leave here. This never ends. William ran a hand through his hair. So, what do you want me to do? I want couples therapy. I want us to try, I really do. But if you don't want to, if you can't see me, then I need to leave. The last sentence came out in a whisper, but it was the most important. William's eyes widened. Are you talking about divorce? I'm talking about survival. I'm drowning, William, and if I stay, I'll die. Not literally, but inside. I'll turn into a ghost, and I can't do that. And the children? The children will understand. Not now, but one day. And I'd rather they see their mother struggling to be happy than see her slowly withering away. William stood there processing. Claire could see him thinking, calculating, perhaps realizing for the first time that she was serious. I don't want to end it, Claire. So change. I can try. Trying isn't enough. I need action. They sat there side by side with a chasm between them and a choice before them. Therapy then, William finally said. We'll try. Claire nodded. It was a start, small, fragile. But it was something. In the weeks that followed, they began therapy. It was difficult, painful, hearing each other's hurts, admitting mistakes, facing the truth that they had become strangers. The therapist asked William, when was the last time you said, I love you to Claire? William hesitated. I don't remember. And when was the last time you really looked at her? Silence. He asked Claire, what do you want from this marriage? I want to be seen, to be valued, to be a partner, not an employee. What if that doesn't happen? Claire took a deep breath. So I'm leaving. Because loving myself has to come before loving anyone else, even him. It was liberating to say it out loud. Put herself first. William tried. He started arriving early. He asked about her day. He helped with the kids, little things, but Claire could see it. It wasn't natural, it was effortful, forced, and she realized something painful. Sometimes, even when someone tries, it's already too late. Love doesn't come back just because you want it to. Some cracks are too big to mend. One night, lying beside him, Claire felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, just emptiness. And she understood. She had changed. She had grown. She had found herself. And William, he was still who he always was. It wasn't his fault. He wasn't a villain. They just weren't compatible anymore. It was time to be brave. It was time to choose. The truth that sets you free. Claire woke up one March morning and knew. She just knew. She could no longer pretend. She could no longer try. She could no longer live a life that wasn't hers. Therapy had helped with something important. It had shown her the truth. William wasn't a bad man. He wasn't violent. He wasn't unfaithful. But he wasn't the man for her either. Not anymore. They had grown in different directions. Or maybe Claire had grown up and William had stayed put. It didn't matter who was at fault anymore. It mattered that it wasn't working anymore. She waited for the children to go to school. She sat with William at the kitchen table. "I need to tell you something," she began. William looked at her. There was something in his eyes. He knew. He already knew. "I can't do it anymore," Claire said. "I tried. We tried. But it's not possible. It's not enough." William was silent for a long time. Then he nodded. "I know." Claire felt her eyes fill with tears, not of sadness, of relief. "I don't hate you," she said, "but I don't love you anymore either, not the way I should. And you deserve someone who truly loves you, and I deserve to love myself too." "What about the children?" William asked. "We'll be honest with them. We'll tell them the truth, that sometimes people change, that love isn't enough without respect, partnership, and connection. We'll show them that it's possible to separate with dignity." William ran his hand over his face. He looked tired, but he also looked relieved. "I'm not happy either, Claire. It's been a while. So we're doing the right thing." They talked about logistics, about dividing assets, about custody. It was civil, mature, sad but necessary. When Emma and Josh arrived home from school, Claire and William called them into the classroom. "We need to talk to you," Claire said. Emma looked from one to the other. She already knew. Josh looked confused. "Mom and Dad are going to separate," William said. "We love each other as a family, but we don't work as a couple anymore." Emma started to cry. Josh did too. Claire hugged them, let them cry, cried with them. "This isn't your fault," she said. "None of this is your fault, and you'll always, always have us. Separated, but present." "Are you leaving?" Josh asked in a small voice. "I'm going to live somewhere else, but I'll always be here for you. Always." It was the hardest conversation of Claire's life, but also the most honest. Over the next few weeks, Claire looked for an apartment. Small, 2 bedrooms, one for her children when they stayed with her. Margaret helped. Dorothy sent flowers. Her writing instructor hugged her tightly. "You're brave," she said. "So brave." But Claire didn't feel brave. She was afraid. Very afraid. Afraid of making a mistake. Afraid of hurting her children. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of not being able to support herself. But something inside her was stronger than fear. It was the certainty that she deserved more. She deserved to be whole. She deserved to be happy. On moving day, Claire stood at the door of her house. She looked back. 15 years there, 15 years of memories, good and bad. But it wasn't her place anymore. She turned to the future, to the unknown, to the scary, but also to the possible. She got in the car, started the engine and left. The apartment was empty, no furniture yet, just boxes. But it had something the house never had. There was a chance. Claire sat on the floor. She opened one of the boxes. Inside, the blue notebook, her mother's diary, the letters. She picked up a pen, opened a blank page, and wrote, "My name is Claire. I'm 38 years old, and today I started over. I don't know what's next. I don't know if I'll make it. I don't know if I'll be happy, but I know one thing. I chose myself, and that's already a victory." That night, alone in the empty apartment, Claire didn't feel alone. She felt free, free to make mistakes, free to get things right, free to be who she truly was. And she realized something profound. The secret her mother wanted her to discover, the secret Dorothy kept, the secret that took a lifetime to understand, the strength she sought outside was always within. She didn't need anyone to save her. She could save herself, and saved. the woman who was reborn 6 months later. Claire was in the park with Emma and Josh. The sun was shining, the trees were green, laughter was in the air. Emma was running free, Josh was playing ball, and Claire was breathing deeply, breathing lightly, breathing alive. It wasn't easy. There were nights of tears, there were bills that were hard to pay. There were moments of doubt. There were days when she wanted to give up, but he didn't give up. He got a job at a small publishing house. He started as an assistant, but he was using words again. I was creating again. He published his first short story in an online magazine, small, but hers. William moved on with his life. He started dating. Claire was happy for him, truly so, because she learned that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, and she was at peace. Emma and Josh adjusted. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. They saw their mother happy, and that mattered. Claire looked up at the sky. She thought of her mother. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for showing me the way, even if it was late." She thought of all the women who lose themselves, who forget who they are, who live for everyone but themselves, and I wanted to tell them, you are strong, stronger than you think, stronger than you've been told. Don't let anyone define your worth, not your husband, not your children, not society, not even yourself on your bad days. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to take up space. You deserve a voice. And it's never ever too late to start over. Claire returned to the apartment. She turned on music. She danced alone in the empty living room and laughed. That belly laugh, that soul laugh. She had found herself. Finally. And now she lived. What about you? Have you ever experienced something similar? Have you ever felt lost? Have you ever had to choose between staying and getting lost or leaving and finding yourself? Leave a comment. Let's talk. Let's support each other, because no woman should feel alone on this journey. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends.